Welcome back to the LCS Spring Playoffs where Splyce and Oduwamne are 2-0 up against Roccat going into match point. And we wanted to take this opportunity to take a closer look at the Romanian top laner. Oduwamne just had a fantastic game, but on top of that has had a very long history in the EU LCS. Truly one of the mainstays on the European scene.
One of the true veterans. We have started all the way back in 2015 when we had the expansion tournament and he actually managed to qualify with H2K
Ancient
back
history.
then. It's a long time ago. He was, of course, the top laner from that H2K lineup, where people will also remember a player like Febiven playing with him in Challenger. Coming in then to the LCS, he's actually from the get-go been considered one of the best and most consistent top laners ever since he joined.
That is true. He has been on H2K, or he had been for 6 splits, and he made playoffs 6 out of 6 times. So a lot of successes domestically, but never that cup, never that championship. However, come 2016 Worlds, a career highlight for H2K and for Oduwamne is that World semi-final in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and I really feel like that was the first time he showed the world how dominant he could be also as a carry top laner, because they won so many games where it was about him on like Jace or Kennen, and they just played around him early and he won his lane every single time. So it was a big moment for him. Obviously, this specific split has been a little bit more dog champs for him early on, but we are seeing more of the carry style from Oduwamne specifically, which is especially what we see in the numbers based on the last few weeks he played, where as the Camille game we just saw here, they actually focus on getting him ahead in the early game.
Well, the story of Splyce, as you say, it was a bit of up and down, and it didn't seem like Oduwamne's true potential was being unlocked in the first couple of weeks, but as the weeks went on, it definitely turned around. He got the chance to play a bit more carry champions, which he was quite vocal about as well, and it's been paying off, especially in that last game.
Yeah, and we keep seeing it now, how his synergy is great with his jungler, how the team is trusting him, and they know, okay, they have a great AD carry they can rely on, but they need someone else to be the carry next to him, and that is going to be Oduwamne in most of the game. So we are seeing him play at a very high level. A lot of players also voted him in as one of the all-pro top laners, despite a poor start to the split, because the second half has been so good.
Also a fantastic guest on the Euphoria podcast.
Very funny.
Very funny. So if we dial it back into today, this quarterfinal where Splyce had to win, or has to win versus Roccat to make it to the semifinals, it's going pretty well. They are up 2-0 at this point going into match point, and Oduwamne had a great last game, and it just seems like Splyce is very much in the zone and a step above Roccat.
They definitely understand what it is Roccat are trying to do in the pick and ban phases, so they make sure that Kasing and Copy have like a fairly safe bottom lane to counteract these like first pick Caitlyn or the first pick Xayah we saw in the first game. And then they just go top lane and they say, hey, Oduwamne, we should just gank your lane and you will kill people, and it actually works extremely well. I think Roccat, I understand what they're trying to do. It's what Cole talked about in the preview, you know, play around a bot lane where they can make plays against Kasing specifically, but it's not working. They're not actually getting 2v2 advantages that they can use. And then suddenly this Shen pick ends up being too hard to execute, because you got to be very proactive early. You got to really set up properly before you actually do anything, and it ends up being defensive ultis from Shen, and then they try and gank his lane, and that doesn't matter because they lose the bottom side. And
do you think the plan is too complicated? Does it need to be simpler for Roccat?
I think their plan makes a lot of sense if the bot lane 2v2 is able to get a big advantage with the early rotation picks they get, and then they can use that lead to secure everything, like first turret on bottom side, Drake, then swap top lane, get the Rift Herald and top lane tower. Then the Shen pick makes a lot of sense because Prophet's job is to play around this strong AD carry them, but they are going even most of the time, and then it's very easy for Splyce to just kind of outplay them in the early game and then play better team fights later.
So 2 games in a row, we've seen in draft phase a lot of priority in getting that bottom lane a good matchup and possibly ahead, but we did also see Blanc actually picking up some kills early this game, so it could have been a win condition. But the sad thing is that none of it has worked for Roccat. Then I want to refer back to your keys to victory at the top of the day, your third option. Invest everything in Prophet. Is that where they're going to go then?
They have been trying to at least go towards his lane, but he's not been on champions where he could fully snowball. Like, he could grab the Camille for himself, and they could try and do what Splyce just did this game. I think the other option they still have left is draft a super strong scaling comp. It does not require you to be very proactive in the early game. You don't have to mechanically outplay Splyce. You can just rely on getting to late game and play really strong team fights with scaling picks for Blank and Hikyu. it is how they picked up most of their wins in the regular season, and it's still an option they do have left to try here in the third game.
Well, the man we talked about a lot before this match, Memento, is going to have to play a crucial role if Roccat want to come back. He has to get one of his lanes ahead and has to get that snowball rolling. But the Fisho, is it possible? Do you see Roccat coming back after this very tough second game loss and now being up against match point, having to win 3 games in a row?
I predicted 3-0 Splyce coming into this. I think the first 2 games have shown why. I'm obviously going to stick with that prediction. It would be weird if I suddenly changed. I think if Roccat drafts an easier-to-execute comp with more scaling so they can actually try and match team fights, I could see them potentially win a game. But at this point, also with the fact that none of these guys have actually played a playoff game, Prophet was the sub on a team that made playoffs.
A lot of experience on Splyce.
A lot of experience on Splyce side. I think this Roccat team, they might just collapse completely and lose this third game.
This might be the end of the road for Roccat. Let's see if they can pull it back. The team's already on stage. Let's leave it to our casters and get us into Game 3.
Thank you very much, Sharks. And backs against the wall right now. Vedis, it's okay, though. The plan, the reverse sweep, it's all still alive. Now, they're definitely going to have to surprise here.
His prediction is relying
it's still,
on right now.
Everything is going according to plan. Lose 2 games. No, seriously.
Yeah, so Splyce, they have
back.
selected red side. They had side selection because they were the highest seed on games 1, 3, and 5. They have chosen red side. Now, Roccat did have choice on 2 and 4, but they still wanted to stay on blue, which is why you've now seen 3 games in a row where they're going to be on the same setup. Now, we're already jumping into champs like Pyra. We've heard a lot of different theories about what Roccat should do coming into this game. Personally, I think they just draft a strong winning 2 versus 2. They play through Blanc. He's been the guy that's one of the big carries for this team, and just go all in. Give bottom lane a decent 2 versus 2. Do not try to invest loads of resources into it. Give Prophet something like an Ornn or maybe even a Camille for himself.
Yeah.
And then just go all in on Snowball Blanc. Have Memento have a big, playmaking early game jungler and just go all in on the Blanc hype train.
Yep. And it looks like one of the other things is to make sure that Xerxes can't be on such a comfortable champion. The adaptation here is they ban out the Zac against him. Everything else still roughly the same. And now also a Morgana ban Kasing's way. Interesting where the focus lies.
So they want to take Kasing off of something that he's had a lot of success with over the last 2 games. EQ and Noskaran have failed to properly punish it down the bottom. And with Thresh still on the cards, it does mean that Splyce have a variety of range supports left that they can still bring out.
Right. Now Zaya's banned once more. Roccat won't have a chance to get that bottom lane.
Perhaps they're expecting the Caitlyn once again to come out from Roccat. Feel like they might look to early lock in the Rise here, or maybe just go for the Camille. Put Prophet on something that not only he can have a decent laning phase on, but you know that towards the top side of the map, he's going to be pretty solid in the 1 versus 1.
Be able to carry. Instead, they lock in the Scion. Now this could also go in the mid, but it does seem like it's more likely to be Prophet's champion.
Yes, you would expect him to be the one to try and hold his own in that 1 versus 1. Ooh, I wonder if Odoamne will go for the Swain here.
Ooh, it was left up.
It is left available.
Oh, we got the lock.
Banned in the first 2 games. And you can flex it between both top and mid. Splyce already locking themselves in 2 strong laners with the Caitlyn and the Swain. Swain has really become a staple of the 8.5 meta, played all across the world, picked or banned in almost every single game. He is just extremely well-rounded, and it's the flexibility of just being able to move him all across the map that will give you that free. And Splyce have a big advantage here because what they can now do is they know whether the Scion is going to be going mid or top because they have the last pick. Or Splyce will have the last pick, which means that they can just put the Swain wherever the Scion is.
Exactly. And you know, Swain has had just so much success across the world in general. I feel like he hasn't really hardly lost most of the games we've seen him played, but he is such a frequent ban because of that. But on the other side, Roccat, they're going to at least get some things for themselves that we wanted to see. The Olaf getting locked in for Memento. You said early game he's going to be able to get into the bottom lane, get into the mid. Memento had already been able to kind of go places, get wards down, stop Xerxes' aggression, but he wasn't able to be as aggressive himself.
Well, now, I wonder what Roccat are going to do because they have left the Rise open. We talked about how it's a big pick for Blank.
Ooh.
Camille locked in. So you would imagine this is a Swain mid, Camille top. So they're kind of losing the flex potential that the Swain does have. And they're actually going to ban away the Cassio because they're expecting the Scion to be moved away from the Camille lane. and they do not want to have Profit on something that can counterpick the Swain. So they might even ban a Vladimir here too. But I think like the most sensible ban would just be Rise. Put Roccat on something a little more uncomfortable. Or put Blank, rather, on something a little more.
Yeah, meanwhile, Rocket's still kind of focusing all their attention and trying to deny as much from Kasing. But the Alistar being banned is a little odd here because it's not really Kasing's forte. He likes these more range supports.
Yeah, that's very true, but I think they're just showing respect because Alistar can be quite obnoxious for the Thresh, and it also pairs up quite nicely with the Caitlyn, and it can make engaging rather difficult.
Yeah, very true.
Jhin actually being taken off the board. I guess they're expecting that from EQ. Now, I'm throwing it out there. Ashe could be an option here. We've seen it brought out from mini true packs before, and it often does pretty well into the Caitlyn. It gives you another engage option, either as a follow-up to the Silent ulti or as an initial engage tool. But it could be a prospect here for EQ. I feel like I've seen him play it in the past, given that he now has 3 splits with us in the LCS, so I think that's a pretty safe gamble to take.
One of the more experienced players on the Roccat side, actually, in terms of ULCS stage experience. Let's see. Splyce still having 10 seconds before they decide to round out their composition.
I feel like that they... Oh.
Trundle support.
Yes, I do believe that is in fact a Trundle support. No.
I think it's top and there's like Camille support.
Okay, so everything can be flexed right now.
Triple flex.
It could be a Trundle jungle. I wouldn't expect it. It could also be a Camille jungle. Wouldn't expect it. In my head, it is a Trundle support. It is Camille top and Swain mid. But I don't know just yet, Byra.
No, I don't think anybody knows right now. So Roccat, they've got to lock in, not knowing exactly how it's going to all stack up. EQ takes the Jinx, by the way, and now that's a champion he actually hadn't played during the regular season. And Blank gets a chance to go for the Anivia once more.
Okay, so Roccat definitely going much more for scaling teamfight. They have a pretty strong early game with the Olaf. Perhaps the Sejuani would have been better in terms of the overall comp. But regardless, I still think that it is a fine, safe pick. You don't really know what's mid, so Splyce could go Kassadin again here. But we'll see. What's the final lock-in for Splyce?
All right, Kasing's just going to go Taric.
Okay, so it's got to be Camille...
Or Trundle jungle.
It's Trundle jungle, Pyra.
Wow.
Wow, we're actually
When's the last time we've seen that?
A Trundle jungle. I don't... Stats, please help us. When was the last time we've seen
I'd like to phone a friend,
Trundle
please.
jungle? Yes. Please help us out. We'll talk a little bit more about it when we get into game. Let's look at the overall comps here. Roccat, team fighting. Definitely the name of the game for them. Blanc can have an opportunity to redeem himself after the Anivia against H2K. So they just want to scale. They want to farm. They have a lot of wave clear. They don't want to try and do anything too proactive in the early game other than Memento. He may look to go for a couple of early jungle invades. Now, Splyce's comp. A little bit more eccentric. They have Odo on a big carry once again. They can put him in a side lane. They have multiple split pushes available. Caitlyn is pretty safe in the middle lane, especially with her ability to escape, and also the Taric providing a little bit of assistance too. The Taric ultimate will help a lot with the anti-team fighting tools, but I must be honest, the Splyce win conditions do not come across immediately to me. This is a very unique composition that I typically would not expect. So we're going to be learning together, Pyra.
Excellent. I love learning things. And Vedius, I'm going to respond to your call for help because I've been told from our statistics people they had to dig pretty deep into the archives here to find out. Trundle jungle has actually been played a total of 4 times, but only in the LCL this split.
The LCL.
You got to look over to CIS before you want to see that happening. Well, let's see. Splyce taking a page from that book and trying to close this one out with some style points, mixing it up. And Roccat, their backs against the wall. They are down 0-2. They need to bring it back 3 times in a row if they want to punch their ticket to Copenhagen. Roccat have everything to lose here, but they have already shown to be able to surprise. Can they do it again? One last chance.
They only have one last chance, Pyra. So they got to get through a Trundle jungle.
Try saying it 5 times fast.
Trundle jungle. Fudge!
You almost got it.
Okay, almost. But now, Xerxes, he's running press the attack, and it looks like he's also got a sorcery follow-up. So I'm going to assume that he's running the Gathering Storm, and he may very well be running the movement speed as well that you also have on the second tree. He could also be running the cooldown reduction. I'm sure that'll be buzzed to one of the two of us in a short while. But press the attack. Basically, one of the big values I can see from this Trundle is that Olaf is known for being a great early skirmisher. You really don't want a 2v2 against him because he has the axe spam, he does true damage on his E, the lower his health goes, the more attack speed he gets. He's basically just a really strong early duelist, and he sticks to you very effectively. One of the weaknesses of Olaf is that he has no dashes, and he has no escapes. So Trundle Pillar can act as a really effective tool, especially pre-6 to kite him, but also cut him off from the rest of his team. So you see an Olaf running in, he's trying to get onto your backline, you instantly throw the pillar up, and there can be no more follow-up. But also I just think that in terms of the early game, Trundle, due to his ability to reduce the enemy's attack damage, can also just help in terms of those early skirmishes. Take some of those stats away, mitigate his trading power, and basically just be an effective early skirmisher against the Olaf. Now, I must admit, I haven't seen a huge amount of Trundle versus Olaf in the jungle. Therefore,
I have, but I don't know if my experience counts.
this is mainly just a lot of theory crafting and the prospects as to why Xerxes would go for it. But we'll get to see. You know, I can also see the Pillar being very effective against low mobility champions like the Anivia as well. The Jinx is in there too. But I think one of the big things is the Scion engage as well. You throw up the pillar, Scion runs in, you want to try and set up that engagement. Oh, you can't because there's a pillar that denies that. Very similar in how an Anivia wall can act to deny a lot of Scion engages too.
Funny enough, we got both in this game.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing how Xerxes will make this Trundle work. His clear speed is relatively quickly, a little bit slower than the Olaf, who right now is heading up towards the top side.
Okay, there is a ward there though, so if Mento did want to make a level 3 gank happen, it would have been spotted out by Odoamne. As you pointed out, not going to be as much, as I say, there's not going to be as much action. The mid lane completely proves me wrong. Blank just gets got by Niski, turns it around a little bit. But Mento, once again, he's moved up towards the top. He's moved around where the ward was, so Odoamne's got to be careful.
Yeah, Odo has no idea that this is going on. Glacial Augment is on Prophet, but he will be spotted out by the ward now. So they know jungle is topside. Xerxes may look to invade on the Krugs to steal away some of the jungle caps. He's just focusing on farming for the time being. Big farm discrepancy being built up given that Memento spent a lot of time in the top lane. Looking across some of the other laners, Blanc doing absolutely fine in the mid lane. Here we go. First potential Trundle gang. No. He's getting me excited there.
Trying to steal some farm. It's okay. It's okay, Ven. You're allowed to get excited.
Oh, he's going back. He's going back. Go on, Xerxes. Get a gank in.
To the mid lane. Okay. Vision of Empire. There's a vision of Blank flapping his way back to tower.
Yeah, the ward there was enough to spot out Xerxes trying to set up that sneaky play. This, by the way, guys, is typically what you see from the Caitlyn lane, just sheer oppression, yeah. Now, the thing about Jinx is she is very similar to Caitlyn in the sense that a lot of her damage basically only comes from her auto attacks. So her early trading in lane is not the strongest. But once she gets a couple of levels under her belt, once she's got a BF, she can be a little bit stronger. Now Niski forced to flash.
Yeah, the wall was up, so Niski was able to push him back on Xerxes. He's going up towards the top.
He's
got to be careful. Have to flash. There goes Prophet. Odoamne comes in with the hook shot off the back of the pillar. And meanwhile, Blanc got egged.
He did get egged. Prophet also survives in the top lane. That was a really cool interaction. Seeing the pillar be used to set up Odoamne to then get the stun off. Didn't even think about that.
You can tell these guys have been practicing.
Yeah, we're learning so much today, Pyra.
Yeah, I mean, this is great from Splyce, though, to see them kind of pull out like something out of their bag of tricks.
It's a Xerxes special. You know, back last year when he was on the Unicorns of Love, he always drafted these really unique junglers. He was kind of one of the big innovators for Ivern.
Yeah, he was one of the first players to do it.
Rumble jungle too. He was playing Zac when it wasn't really meta, and now he's doing it again with the Trundle.
Yeah. Never been shy of playing things that other people might not have thought of and making them work more often than not. It's one of the reasons Xerxes is considered to be such a solid jungler, and he's been performing, honestly, incredibly well in this entire series as well as this whole split.
Certainly has been. Now, oh,
that's how it happened mid.
Right, yeah. So basically, Niski lands a good combo. He is able to get the chase down because Blanc ran out of mana.
That feels
and
bad.
Forced him into egg, and a little unfortunate there for Blanc. But now he's level 6. He'll push out the wave, go back to base, fight his tier, TP back in, and he's running the unsealed spellbook. Always a bit of a controversial subject between Anivia players because many Anivia players see that you only ever run TP for the laning phase. So outside of that, you don't get a huge amount of value. Which is why having the unsealed spellbook is good, because you can then trade out of it. But many other Anivia players prefer to just run things like the cleanse or the heal, and then just get something like a comet, which just gives you a little bit more trading power and an extra bit of damage.
Right, but clearly Blank, he's focused on trying to survive, make sure he can farm up as much as he possibly can, because it isn't going to be about this laning phase. It is going to be about the late game. This is the Roccat game plan that we've seen have success. They've finally gone to it. It's taken them 2 games to get there, though. Let's see if they've got anything else left in the tank here. Hikyu and Norskaren going to get spotted. They get the hook off, but there's the dazzle. They get Flay 2 in, but Hikyu gets into exhausted. Traps are down. Kavi's also taking a lot of damage, though. Oh, he pulls him right over. Kavi's going to have to flash. The Rockets are out. Nobody's coming to help. Flash is following, heals everything. The hook, it's not going to be there. The Jinx, Hikyu, he's overstepped it. Can he stay alive? No summoner spells. Kasing is looking for that auto. The hook comes in. Norskaren's going to save his carry's life.
One comes in. Oh,
Kasing, he's going to get stunned up against the wall. It's his first blood for Roccat. It is.
Roccat finally secured themselves first blood after what was a bit of a crazy trade down in the bottom lane.
That was sick, man. It looked like it was all over for Hikyu. He burns both the summoners. Norskaren gets a clutch hook. And the teleport for Blank. That's why you take the teleport, I guess.
There you go, Blank. He didn't use it for lane. He ends up finding a successful play down bot.
He's continuing to find a successful play down bot.
Very close wall there.
Yeah.
Robert able to get out of it. But when we get to see the replay, this is overall just a great trade from Norskaren and Hikyu. They go on. Traps come out a little bit too late here. Hikyu wants to use them afterwards. They may have been on cooldown. Not entirely sure why he delayed it so much. But he then tries to go in for the flash. And then, the body block from Kasing means that when the flash actually comes through from Hikyu, it's not enough. Now, Norskaren, he tries to help his AD carry out a little bit. He tries to give him the heal. You think Norskaren's going to die, but then the TP comes in for Blanc. And now we actually see a gank up on the top side.
Yep. Ganking up towards the top. Prophet's going to get stopped up once again. Subjugated by Xerxes. He's trying to go unstoppable. Gets interrupted. Trying to run back. Flash forward. Followed. And Otawamne claims a kill.
And this is Splyce sticking to a win condition that has proved to be successful so many times over the later stages of the split. Xerxes camps for Odo. He's on a carry. Set this guy up to be the big impactor in the game. And Odo has been the best performing player so far of this series. His Camille performance in game 2, constantly finding opportune flanks. His overall performance in game 1, this guy has had such a huge impact in this game. And comparatively to Prophet, he's really struggled to have the same kind of impact as his counterpart.
And Prophet has been much more on these tanks. Obviously, the Gnar was something that he played in game number 1, and not to incredible success, even though he was able to out-split push on the sides by Memento. Now, Niski's might be in some trouble here. He goes for the Demonic Ascension, and in goes Memento, gets the kill with the Ragnarok on.
All right, now we have a game on our hands.
Yeah, we do, Vedius. This is what we wanted to see out of this series.
Yeah, Roccat. They don't have any early game focused win conditions, and funnily enough, now they're finding way more opportunities.
Funny how that works sometimes to get the Flay back on Kasing. He's going to be in some trouble. Not even going to be able to pop his ultimate because he is only level 5, and down he goes, Hikyu picking up one.
Kasing, we talked a little bit about how he prefers these ranged supports. When you put him on things like the Tahm Kench, the Braum, the Taric, he really struggles to have the same level of impact, and now we can see what that Morgana ban really is doing for Roccat. They're finding leads in the bottom lane. The 2v2 in the mid is going in favor of Roccat, and yes, while Prophet is falling behind, at least Roccat are gaining advantages elsewhere.
And crucially, they're able to just play around the map wherever they want. Let's see how this play started again. Niski forced to walk and gets hit by the Flash Frost.
You know, and while Blanc did make a bit of a mess up with his wall last week against H2K, he is really making up for it this week. He's had so many great walls this time around. It helps secures a kill in mid. Then Roccat literally just run bot. Big misplay there from Kasing. He knows that they do not have control over the river. Your mid lane is dead, dude. You got to concede it. You have to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to set up vision. He does, no flash, and he does.
Yep. Now, before that all happened, Splyce were able to make the play up towards the top, taking down Prophet. Of course, Otawamne was pretty confident coming into this matchup that he was going to be able to do that and exploit Prophet. Yep. Xerxes, also, the combo. This is what's made this Splyce team so good, and we saw it on display the last 2 games. But Roccat have found an in other places.
Roccat. This is definitely looking good for them. Remember, they're the ones with a big team fight comp. And, we keep looking at this Splyce composition, and it's just kind of a little all over the place. You never really consider Trundle to be that amazing team fight impactor. You look at Caitlyn, and she kind of has a mid-game lull, whereas Jinx, because of the passive attack speed that she gains from her Q, like she'll have a little bit more of a mid-game value once she hits that 2-item spike. And Nivea going to be ramping up, all scaling towards those team fights. And Roccat setting themselves up nicely right now.
These are all champions that can take over games. Xerxes going to face check into Memento. And there's the subjugate on, but it's a team fight that they are willing to take. Memento unable to grab the lantern out to safety. Meanwhile, Blank and Niski going toe-to-toe. Here comes Prophet into the TP, but he's going to have to get the hell out of dodge before the rest of Splyce collapse on top of a misplay from Roccat.
Oh, Memento, he feels that he could commit to the fight, and he ends up losing his life pick now.
Get the stun on to Prophet. Hook only lands on the minion. Prophet decides not to go in any further, just gets Aurora the Slayer out onto the cannon creep.
Ulti a little wonky there. A lot of summoner spells used though. TP for Prophet, TP for Odo. Kill though goes in favor of Splyce. They get what they want, and now they have control over the river, reclaiming a lot of the controls. A lot of damage once again comes down onto Blank.
Yeah. That was a clutch Cosmic Radiance though from Kasing that time around. Otherwise, Memento might have traded 1-for-1.
Could very well have been. Once we get the replay, we can look a little bit closely at it. Now Xerxes just coming to help his bottom lane push out so they can go back to base. Let's see here now. They have full vision control. 3 members, they know this is happening. They go for the engage. Blanc just trying to keep the mid laner away. But then here, the moment the ulti comes in, the pillar, you can see how difficult it is for Memento to get away. We talked a little bit at the very beginning about how that pillar can be really effective against champions like the Olaf. And we got to see it in practice.
Yeah. We also got to see a very effective strategy to deny the Thresh Lantern. It's called stand on top of it.
Yes. Very obnoxious.
I hate when that happens.
Roccat end up losing out on the exchange. They will lose control over the river. Cloud Drake will be spawning in about a minute 40.
Gold game is pretty even right now, though.
Yep.
Like, even though Roccat are definitely playing more towards the later stages of the game, they've been still trying to execute some plays, usually in response to Splyce's positioning, but that's the first time they've actually lost out on it. Memento, however, is not deterred. Sitting in this brush in the mid, looking for the pickup onto Niski. Won't be easy, though. Niski's got his flash. He's got everything that a level 9 Swain could hope for.
But, I mean, so the bright sides for Splyce are Odo's fed. He's got a healthy CS lead, really strong, up in the top lane. They can put him off in a side lane. Great, good job. Splyce are happy bunnies. The issue is, though, let's say Roccat group up around Baron. Let's say they've got 2 items. They know they take it pretty damn quick. And they say, you know what, we don't want you to split push, Odo. You have to come. You have to come fight us now. I don't know if Splyce can really effectively stall with the comp that they have. Roccat from actually just forcing that Baron down and forcing him to a fight. Because I feel like right now, their ability to play on side lanes is not strong enough to force Roccat to split apart. So the emphasis right now is on Splyce to try and find a couple more picks. Maybe a couple more ganks towards the top side. Maybe another early fight or skirmish that can go in their favor.
There we go.
Could be it, but Blank, very aware, once again, able to dodge out on another gank.
Good wall off that time, too. Even though the Vision of Empire smacked him, he was able to get away.
Yeah, and this is something that he's done a pretty good job of during the regular season, just typically avoiding ganks. A lot of Age is now done. Hook lands.
Okay, bring Memento in if they can. He actually doesn't take the Lantern. They ought not to go for it, because Singh didn't take too much damage off that one.
I think they saw that the duo was roaming down. Niski does have the TP as well, so decided not to take the gamble. They got the cleanse out from Kasing though, so still advantage gain. Blank soloed the blue buff, so he's going to be happy as well. Okay. Drake now spawn and stun.
Xerxes immediately going for that one. And Niski going to join him pretty soon. Let's see if Roccat wants to go for the contest. You can see Memento around the side. He's got flash. He didn't want to get into the pit. But it looks like it's not worth trying to burn anything like that. He throws the axe, but he doesn't find it.
So, Drake for Drake on either side.
Mountain for Cloud, though. Splyce are going to be able to rotate around a little bit faster. Oh, my goodness. Blank gets pulled back by the never move, and then the wall for the pillar. Xerxes, though, not a lot of damage dealt onto him.
Oof, look at the damage, though, from that ultimate from Blank. But that's another cool interaction. The knock-up allows you to be dragged in from Niski. Any form of CC will work. Stun now lands on the Memento.
Okay, there's the dazzle. Let's see if we can get out this time. He's able to.
Just barely. The root was about to land there. Will force him to go back to base.
He had the Ragnarok, too, but all the same, you don't want to have to use that defensively. Prophet, though, looking to go in onto Otawamne, but turnabout is fair play right there. That shield is huge. Prophet finds nothing.
Another gang towards the middle. They really want to try and put some pressure down onto Blank, but he is holding his own. Farm coming along nicely. Rod of Age is already done. The tier is stacking up. Things looking much better this time around for Roccat.
Oh, certainly. When you compare it to the last couple of games, much different in the draft. Much better adaptation. Splyce, of course, as you pointed out, a very unique composition, a very different kind. I'm wondering how experimental this really is.
Yep. I feel like that after the first 2 games, they kind of expected, or they looked at the difference between the 2 teams as pretty significant so that they could try something a little new. I would imagine this is something that's prepared. Right? This is not something that they just threw out in the heat of the moment. I do not believe that Peter Dunn as a coach would just allow them to just suddenly pick Trundle. This is definitely something I would imagine they've practiced in scrims. And so far, it's not like that they're dramatically far behind, right? Gold's still pretty even. They perhaps need to put a little bit more focus now on trying to snowball Odo a little bit more.
Yeah, but meanwhile down in this bottom lane, you can see Hikyu's going to become a wave clear machine. He's got his Runaan's Hurricane already finished, which means he's not just going to fire 1 rocket, he's going to fire 3 rockets on every auto attack. And Jinx definitely has some pretty impeccable wave clear. It's going to be hard for Kabi to kind of match this pressure while he's still building towards his Infinity Edge. Yeah.
We talked about how Jinx does have a slightly stronger mid-game spike, just because of... It's always important to remember how attack speed steroids on AD carries can influence their spike. And the thing about EQ is, because he gets it on his Q, he can just offer a little bit more in these fights. So Splyce are going to have to respect this. I do see
Teleport.
TP coming in the bottom lane.
Double teleport. This could be trouble right now. Hikyu's going to get pulled back. There's going to be another one pop from Prophet. He better cancel, though. This is going to be trouble unless they want to try to take the 5v5. But the Scion is all by his lonesome, and that's a 5-man, 4-man Cosmic Radiance, but it's going to end. Here comes the Scion train, but it's going to end prematurely. Memento and the rest of the team trying to make good their escape, but that was dead on arrival.
Big mistake there from Prophet that is quickly punished by Splyce. He finished off the TP, thinking that they could go for an engage, but Splyce were just in a better position, and now they will be able to secure their first tower of the game.
The first tower of the game as well, just shy of the 18-minute mark. It's going to fall to Splyce. Meanwhile, you can see Hikyu was trying to make a mad dash to put some damage on the mid. Instead, he gets chased away by Odoamne. Memento chucks out an axe to try and push Kasing and Xerxes back, but Splyce are taking control.
So let's see how this all set up. Roccat trying to push towards this tier 1 in the bottom lane. Noskarian helps the AD carry get out, and then all they need to do is run up to the river and disengage. Just get out, you're fine, cancel the TP. Prophet doesn't, he's immediately forced to flash. The rest of the team tried to save him, but he cannot get out in time. Oof. And overall, Roccat, it was a bad judgment call there. And it ends up costing them...
More than it had to.
Yeah, more than it had to, I think is the best way to describe it, Pyra. Now we do see Odoamne in darkness.
Oh boy,
Xerxes here as well.
This could be trouble. Stepping into the pillar! That's 2 flashes blown. Noskarian and EQ paid for that face check dearly. Memento a little bit late to that party.
Oof, Splyce putting the pressure on now. I must admit as well, just suddenly had another thought. You got to remember that Xerxes' ulti will steal away stats. One of the things that Memento's ulti also gives you is a lot of stats, a lot of defensive stats too. So when that Olaf is running into your face, you steal away the bonus stats that he gives you, and then he becomes a lot easier to kill, especially when he's running into your face.
Yeah,
so I think
that's not good.
I think that's kind of why, you know, we talked a little bit about, I think that the Trundle is kind of like an answer to the Olaf. And you can see now in these fights how much of an answer he can be, because the moment that Olaf runs in, you steal the stats, the Caitlyn and the Swain can just focus the front line, and then with him gone, it becomes easy for them to actually win out. So I can see additional value there. We'll see if he's able to pull it off in the fights to come. As Baron spawning in about 15 seconds, not going to be the immediate priority, but Splyce already setting up a lot of vision around it.
Yeah, this is what's actually also another thing very different about these games. In the previous games, Roccat have been able to get a lot of vision inside the enemy jungle, inside the rivers. They've not been able to do it as much this time around because Splyce have actually been able to fight them back. Let's see what they can do here, though. In the mid, it's EQ that actually finds himself caught right into Xerxes. It's a lot of damage, but the rest of the team has arrived, and they're looking to chase down the Trundle. The hook is going to catch on top of him. Ragnar rocking and rolling his Prophet, who picks up the kill, but meanwhile, Odoamne taking down the backline. Will he escape with his life? Trying to take the fight here to the rest of Roccat. Hextech ultimatum, and he's not going anywhere. Popped in by that hook, but it's not going to go down just yet. The Cosmic Radiance, it's too late. He's going to fall. However, so have 2 members of Team Roccat right now. Another hook is not going to catch on. A very extended fight in the mid proves a 2 for 2.
Ooh, very close exchange. Almost ended in disaster for Splyce as Xerxes is overextended. He gets punished for it. But then Odo comes up huge. Comes in from the flank. This guy is always appearing from darkness. Is almost able to get away with his life if Kasing had... I'm not sure if he was out of range or if he just didn't ulti in time, but still very, very close. Roccat, though, were able to secure 2 kills. Splyce returned the same. Gold still very even. And Roccat Still happily scaling towards that team fight setup, but Splyce, to be fair, are never really giving Roccat the opportunity to force a full 5v5 fight.
That's another one for the vocal warm-ups, isn't it? Yeah, he stepped up really far forward in the beginning of that fight. Now is, seeing everyone coming, you still got to be careful if you're an AD carry. You don't want to be face first into a trundle. But here we are, just past 20 minutes into this game. Things very even right now, and we're going to start seeing some of those item spikes really come into play. Because of the first Runan's Hurricane, Hikyu is yet to get the damage from the Infinity Edge, but that's not a problem for Kabe, who's also rocking a Static Shiv, who's really starting to pull ahead here on this Caitlyn. Okay, pillar, hook, not gonna land. No more fighting in the mid, but everyone's keen to be around it. We've only had one tower fall in this entire game so far, Vedius. For all the action and all the attempts, that's all we've seen.
Now, more fun learnings with Trundle.
Oh, yes?
Looks like he's gone for the Zeke's Convergence very early on. Oh, actually, before we get to that, let's have a look at the replay. So, Hikyu by himself in the middle lane. Always a risk. Xerxes uses the pillar, drags him in with Niski. This is fine. What Xerxes doesn't realize is, there are actually 4 people around. Maybe he wasn't by himself. And then Odo sneaks up from behind, easily picks up that kill. So they end up trading initially 1-for-1. Now Odo, being the confident playmaker that he is, thinks that this is fine. Because he actually walks away thinking that the fight is going to be disengaged and then walks back in. So I feel like Kasing could have saved his top laner there. Instead, he misread the situation.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Flash
wow,
Frost.
okay.
Finding
not realize this happened.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Okay, so they actually forced out the flash from Kobe as well. Good play there from Blank. This guy, who plays this guy so much, he's actually had, so far, pretty solid performances throughout this this series.
Oh, yeah. Give it to Blank. They've been trying to camp him all game, too, and he hasn't gone down. Hasn't bowed down, either. Splyce still rocking a slim lead, and while all the replays were happening, they did pick up another dragon. It was an Ocean.
Right. It's a good spot there, Pyro. Scaling starting to come in from both sides. Right, so back to my core tunnel point.
Yeah, go for it.
Zeke's Convergence has been picked up for Xerxes, and I assume he has paired that up with Kobe. But it actually looks like he may have paired it up with Niski. Not entirely sure who's paired it up with. Point is, you use your ulti, which is obviously really close and really easy to proc. Because you're melee, it's really easy to stick onto a target. And then, it is the AD carry. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so it was Kobe. He then throws the auto attack, he then ignites it, and then you get a bunch of extra damage. It's basically super easy to proc it, and basically just get more damage coming out from your AD carry. I think it makes sense. It gives you pretty cool stats. It gives you armor, magic resist, mana, and cooldown reduction. And given that he already has Cinderhalt, he's pretty happy. So he's a pretty tanky dude. He gets the bonus stats from his ulti. He enables his AD carry to do even more damage as well. And this is why I just really want to illustrate that this was clearly prepared.
Oh yeah, no, there's so much that's gone into this that's unexpected, but they clearly have practiced it enough times to kind of know how to play this around. So it's nice to see Splyce have some extra tricks in their playbook. I was thinking Roccat might be the ones to kind of throw those curveballs out, but Splyce did it in this game, and they've kept it close. Focus seems to be around the mid lane right now, though. Of course, with Baron on the Rift, nothing is for certain.
Yeah, the focus is mid because by having control over it, it enables you to get control over the river, which you can see right now Splyce is setting up for a lot of control wards in their inventory. There is one control ward in the Baron Pit, which, shame, Splyce, you should have checked that. That will just be sitting there for the time being. They don't need to clean it out right now. They'll likely just push another wave mid, wait for Odo Omne to push out the wave on bot, have him rotate up with the rest of his team, force a numbers advantage, and then that could be an opportunity for them to look to try and force play around Baron, but it's always dangerous forcing Baron against Nivea around the Baron Pit.
Yes, also, if you want to group into a pit and you have Jinx Rockets to contend with, because she did just pick up that Infinity Edge, so now we see that kind of matched on the damage. Really need to see if they're going to be able to get the Poland. Oh, speaking of Poland, Blank, he gets knocked back by the Never Move, but he does pin Niski up against the wall. No damage returned, though. Or very little, rather.
Splyce actually lost the Rift Scuttler there. That's going to be a bit of pain for them. Odo just continuing to do Odo things.
Be scary. Kill jungle camps.
250
one-shot 80 carries.
Farm at 25 minutes into the game. He's been very efficient with his farming, and also just, once again, having a huge impact overall.
This is a large part of why Odo Omne hasn't missed a playoff.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a really consistent, solid player, and there was so many question marks in the early part of Splyce's season because we weren't seeing that out of him. And it just seemed because Splyce as a team hadn't quite gelled yet, didn't know exactly how they wanted to play the game together. And it's nice to see them really pick up and have their potential unlocked here.
Exactly that. Splyce should certainly have developed. And for Roccat, while they haven't made the same most obvious developments, you can see that in things like their vision control and their ability to come in with a clear game plan is something that they've gradually grown throughout the split. And it's less noticeable, like there's less statistical support to suddenly enhance that viewpoint, but unfortunately, engage.
Hello, Cosmic Radiance coming in. However, we're going to get blocked off by a pillar. Trying to go in once more. The teleport is going to be canceled
From Odo, so Swain's still sitting onto it for now, but that was Roccat trying to force a fight. They feel pretty strong right now. We talked about how mid to late game team fights definitely what they want to go for. Noscaran tried to make a play, uses the flash, isn't quite able to do it. A very quick turret ultimate dissuades the engage from Roccat.
But this is pretty typical of the games that Roccat win anyways. They get themselves into the late game relatively even, maybe a tiny bit behind, but not very behind. And then they just outfight, outscale. However, they're losing a lot of towers right now. That's going to be number 3 taken down. Camille hook shots away.
But look at how close the gold is even with 3 towers down. Roccat still very much in this game. The Baron is probably going to be one of the big deciding factors because that's where you'll see a lot of these late game fights come from.
Never move, Vision of Empire. And of course, the big Demonic Ascension, Niski trying to take down Prophet. He flashes over. Prophet has just had a hard one this game. Every time he goes into the side lane, somebody ruins his day.
So much damage coming out from Niski. And the thing is, both Camille and Swain do pretty effectively up against the undead monster, which means that because Niski still has his TP, they can keep Camille topside, hang around the Baron. And now let's see how quickly this actually goes down, because for Splyce, this should actually be pretty quick.
Okay, they're going to get the stun off. Actually, peel away, look for the Olaf, and there's the Hextech ultimatum. Now, do they have the damage to take down Odo Wamne? Let's see if they can pull it in. Not before he gets the pick off, and the wall is going to melt. Odo is not going to fall today. And with the jungler gone, Splyce, they can just keep this pressure game up. Meanwhile, Niski down bottom, trying to push this one in. Prophet just trying to stop him.
And it's Splyce that are actually forcing fights onto Roccat. They're the ones that feel confident in their ability to make stuff happen. And now they'll get themselves a kill, they'll get themselves a Drake. Niski beating down onto this tier 2. Everything seems to be back in control of Splyce. Roccat really struggling to find the fights that they want.
Yes, indeed. Niski does get run into by Prophet. The does make Smash. He's going to get dashed away from here, but it's just love taps compared to what Niski's able to deal in terms of damage, and the rest of Splyce were not far behind. Roccat just unable to find those fights, unable to find those kills.
Exactly that. Roccat, they still have the scaling option, but it's going to get harder and harder based on the proactivity that Splyce are demonstrating.
It's all about that scaling, though. Yeah. Get the 2 needlessly large rods on Blank. I always look at that, and even I know the items change, but I always just kind of look sideways at it like, wait.
It always looks a little funny for the
why 2 rods?
Old school League of Legends players. Now Roccat, they're the ones grouping up around the Baron. Do they force it? They do have teleport on Prophet. Here we go.
All right, Baron's going to be started. They've got 4 members. Camille trying to sniff around the side. How far do Roccat want to commit to this? He's already down to 4,500. They're going to have to run away. Memento taking a little bit of extra damage. Blank getting popped down. Here comes Cersei. It looks like they're going to lose at least 1 here. Odo Wamne over the wall. Hextech ultimatum looking for Hikyu, but they can't quite follow.
Big stun.
Here comes Prophet. They got a huge one. Odo Wamne, though, he takes out the 80 carry. Niski's flashed over the wall with a Demonic Ascension. And it looks like Odo Wamne is not keen to let anyone get away. None shall escape except Memento to tell the tale, as even Prophet is locked up under the tower. The train is going, and it's an ace in the hole to finish him off, or not. He's actually going to hold on.
But Splyce secure 3 kills. They have the Baron in their eyes. And Roccat, they just wanted the fight to happen. They knew they have a team fight comp. They knew that if they could just get the 5 versus 5, they could somehow turn this game around. But unfortunately, Splyce were the better executors. Splyce were the ones to take the Baron. And Splyce are on track to take the series over Roccat.
They could sweep this one out. It'll be very, very good for them going up next week. Memento taking a huge heaping helping of damage. Odo Wamne is a terror in every lane.
Odo Wamne has been pivotal in this series. While Niski has certainly played well, he's racked up some impressive scorelines. I feel that Odo has really been the big swing factor that has determined the outcome. Like, you think about the Scion engages that he got in Game 1, you think about Game 2, the constant flanks and threat that he had on the backline, and here again in Game 3, constantly providing opportunities, and every time Splyce look like they're about to fall behind, it is Odo that is coming up big. This is why you give this man a carry.
Oh yeah. definitely serviceable and all the other things too, but seeing the variety, seeing the versatility that Splyce have is just so impressive, and they are well on their way to getting that 3-0 victory. And remember what that means for them: a guaranteed spot in Copenhagen, a matchup against G2 Esports.
The rematch.
The rematch, in fact, yeah. Probably be wanting a little bit of revenge for losing out on that tiebreaker game as well.
But now Splyce, they do still have to close out the game. They've got to break into the base against an Anivia and a Jinx, which is always challenging, but
They don't get got.
Caitlyn will be able to help. You can also use the Trundle Pillar to catch targets out as they try to defend.
There's a lot of support going for Kabe right now, not just the Zeke's Convergence. We also see the wonderful, wonderful support item of Ardent Sensor. Buff him up as much as possible. Four members strong.
Oh, the wall. Not enough to keep Kabe away.
That's okay. Kabe can just shoot right over. It's a chest-high wall. All right, down goes the tower. 31 minutes. 32 nearly on the clock. The Goldies started to kind of swing pretty big here for Splyce. It was only about 2,000-3,000 at most any time in the game, but it really turned around after that fight. Now it's going to be another one. Let's see, the Cosmic Radiance is down and the health bars are melting here. Kabe's going to start it off by taking down Prophet. Down goes the Anivia, and they don't even need to worry about breaking the base because they have broken the backs of Team Roccat, cleaning house. And is this where they do it? With a triple kill for Odo Wamne, there are no members of Roccat standing.
Splyce obliterate Roccat. They cement their dominance over the opposition, and they're on their way to the semi-final.
Looking to sweep this one away. We saw a few fastballs, we saw a curveball, and Splyce pitched a no-hitter against Roccat.
With that victory, Splyce make their way to Copenhagen. They will be going up against G2 Esports in the semi-final, and getting a 3-0 win over Roccat will do so much for their confidence moving into next week.
No kidding, man. They did it in a very calm, collected, standard Splyce way in 2 games, and in the third, they decided to mix things up a little bit, and they were the stronger team every time.
And you think about the development that this team has made from the beginning of the split, where they seem to be a little all over the place, relying on 50-minute games to pull out wins, just hoping that they can get those late-game team fights in order to scramble back from what was a horrible early-game deficit. They are now the ones controlling the early game. They're now the ones dictating the pace. They have multiple carry threats in every single role. This team is looking strong, and now they've secured themselves as a top 4 team in Europe.
It is incredible, though. Really, it's hard to understate how much growth we've seen out of Splyce, because we were even looking for these points of critique. Where can they falter? Where is maybe other win conditions for teams? We looked at Niski maybe as a potential weak link, but he showed up today in a big way. First getting really fed on that Cassid, and then just everything else he did afterwards. Fantastic play out of him. The bottom lane doing its job well. In Splyce, there's so little to complain about these guys.
Yep, and for Roccat, it was always going to be a struggle for them coming into the series. I saw them as like the younger brother to Splyce in many ways, in that a lot of their strengths Splyce also share, but Splyce has more experience. They have a little more in terms of support structure, and when you have 2 years older your younger brother, not only can you do everything that he can do, but you have a couple of new tricks that you can bring out as well that he isn't prepared for. And it was going to be challenging for Roccat to really stand a chance. And while they did show glimmers of brilliance, unfortunately the execution wasn't quite there. But that doesn't mean that things are all lost for Roccat. You can see that foundations of this team are still very strong. This team was able to bring Roccat to playoffs after so long apart. And going into summer, this roster has a lot of potential. You know, you can see the growth that can be made. And the future prospects that this team does hold.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's despite the fact that it goes to a 0-3 result, Roccat have a lot to celebrate. The fact that they made playoffs, ending that drought, and with a team that I think a lot of people didn't expect anything from at the start of the split. They really proved their worth, and they proved that they could be a team to tangle with going into this spring split. We'll see what happens in the summer.
Yes, yes we will.
All right, now as we close out that last game, we want to know who you think is going to deserve that player of the series. So why don't you guys hit us up on LOL Esports with your favorite. You can choose from Odo Omne, Xerxes, or Niski. And honestly, I think it's a hard one, man.
I mean, for me,
Odo's definitely up there, though.
It's got to be Odo. I feel like he had the most impact at every single one of those games. I felt like his Camille was monstrous. His sign engages in game 1 were flawless. And with the leads that he was given, he was able to execute upon them beautifully. So for me, he was my MVP of the series.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to argue with that one, to be honest, because of just exactly what you said, so much impact. But I do want to give some props to everybody else on the Splyce side. And that means, of course, Splyce, they are advancing to the semifinals. Either H2K or Vitality are going to join them tomorrow. And since they're the 3rd seed, as you pointed out, Vedius, they're guaranteed to face off against G2. Nice little grudge match going on there.
Yep, so the winner of Vitality and H2K will go up against Fnatic. So it guaranteed some exciting semifinals, but they don't have to wait that long because we've got more exciting League of Legends tomorrow.
We certainly do. And before we even get to that, you talked about Odoamne being that possible big player of the series. Well, for more on Splyce's win, we're going to check in with Medic and hear from him as well.
Thank you very much, Pyra. I am joined by Odoamne, the top laner from Splyce. Now, a 3-0 victory on the day. Was that what you were expecting coming into today?
Sort of. I mean, given how our season went and how Roccat season went, I think it was... I was expecting it to be kind of a 3-0. I didn't think they would pose a lot of threats to us, but the first game was kind of iffy because I feel like we just kind of trolled a bit in draft with three losing lanes in a way. I mean, scaling was on our side, but I think that game was too hard and we shouldn't have drafted like that on that one.
Okay, it's odd that you call it too hard because Niski had like 8 kills by the 16-minute mark. Like, can draft actually have that much of an impact on a game even if you get these early kills?
Pretty much, because even though he had all those kills, they had pushing top and pushing bot, and they had really good vision set up around the river line, and we barely could walk in and contest that vision because even though we had 8-0 castle lane, their bot lane could always move, or if they wanted to be top side, their top lane could always move. So yeah, that kind of sucked.
Okay. And you were on Sion in that first game. C-tier dog champ, I think you called him on Euphoria, or was it B-tier?
I think it's C tier. He's like the biggest dog. So I mean, not the biggest dog. Maokai is the biggest dog, but he's like the badass of the dogs.
Okay, he's the badass of the dogs. Then you were on Camille in the second 2 games. In the early portions of the split, you were much more on tanks than you were on carries for Splyce. What was it that sort of transferred into you being a more carry-orientated top laner?
I mean, I think coaching staff figured that I was inting too hard on tanks.
Yeah, I remember your Ilawi game.
Oh, that one was a pleasure to play. I enjoyed that one thoroughly, but I think they figured I inted too much on tanks. So if I int on tanks, then I'm pretty useless. So at least if they put me on carries, there's a chance I don't break my hands and I can do something.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about next week, Odoamne. I know you want to get away, but before...
I really need to go to the bathroom, sorry.
I can understand that. Next week you play against G2. Semi-final matchup. Is there anything you're worried about for that matchup?
Nah.
You think you just got it?
I don't think we just got it, but I feel like the last time we met, we lost because of our own fault. And I don't think... I mean, I think they're a worthy opponent, but I don't think it's, one-sided for G2 or anything. I think we have a really good chance to just take them down.
Okay, makes sense. Any prediction you want to give us for that matchup?
3-0.
3-0 to Splyce?
Not really. G2.
3-0 to G2. Well,
Yeah.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Odoamne, perhaps not that much faith in your team, but we'll see how much faith
Yeah, we kind of suck, sorry.
We'll see how much faith PGL have in you. Hand it over to you, Shox. Take it away.
Welcome to the LCS post-game lobby. I'm already smiling because we have Kasing and the Fisho and Cold, and Odoamne, as has been his persona throughout the split, was really funny in his interview again. Silly, let me call it that.
I gotta admit, I didn't hear the last 2 minutes because I was chatting to Kasing.
He was saying that they were gonna... He was asked a prediction for the match versus G2. He said 3-0. Medic said for Splyce, no for G2. And then it was laughter and hilarity ensued. But it's going to be much funnier over here. So, Kasing, thank you very much for joining me. And also, congratulations to your side. A 3-0. Very nice work.
I mean, I think considering, what we saw, like when we lost to Vitality and G2, those games, I think actually we could have won. But it was actually on us to, like, to not play the comp correctly. And basically, we just got really impatient. And I think one game we just tried to rush Nash, and that was just terrible by us. Because we should know, we're not bad players. And I think today showed us that we can play cleanly whilst also being able to be decisive at certain times.
It seemed like you were still very much mulling over that Week 9 performance. Did you really come here today wanting to make the statement of, hey, we are better than this. We can play cleaner than this?
I mean, I feel like when teams are basically saying that Splyce can maybe go 3-1 and 3-2 or even, lose to lose to Roccat, then I feel a bit like, how do I say it? I felt like it was because of the fact that our Week 9 performance was pretty shit. And yeah, I think that's what caused a lot of people to doubt us, but I never thought that we would lose to Roccat.
Well, the fish show also said it was the easiest 3-0 prediction in his life, so at least he had faith. He had faith.
Oh, the fish show.
Because I actually watch the games and analyze the teams. The other guys just do this, and then they blindly predict.
That is so rude. You're just saying that nobody else does their job except for you.
I mean, did you see Cole's 3-1 prediction? Like, what was that?
3-1?
Oh my God.
I actually analyzed Splyce and thought that they could actually pull off a win by abusing the fact that the bot lane of Splyce didn't always have the best laning phase. So I thought that could give them a win. But they actually played very smart from the bottom side and didn't get abused. But also Roccat, I feel like they didn't actually play completely to this condition. So I thought it was a little bit on both, But I think it was clear that Splyce was the better team.
It was a good prediction.
What was the TLDR of Roccat? I feel like we talked about keys to victory, be it the mid lane, be it possibly Profit, be it the bot lane, but they tried a bit of everything, a late game composition, and a good start in the last game, and it still didn't work. So is the TLDR then just not strong enough to get to semifinals?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the fair statement to make in this case here. One of the things we looked a lot at between the two teams was just, it kind of felt like Splyce could do everything Roccat could do. Splyce could just do it better. And Splyce in general also had more talent on their lineup. So it just felt really hard from the get-go, unless Roccat had like one specific thing in the game they could really abuse to get ahead. Could have been the bot lane, wasn't the bot lane. Could maybe have been Profit in the first game, it wasn't. Blank, not really. And then suddenly, if you don't have any lanes you can necessarily abuse to get this kind of lead when you are the weaker team, you get 3-0'd.
So, Christine, how did you feel as the series went on? You won first game pretty handily. Was there ever any doubts? Was there ever any, we got to change our strategy? Or was it really, this is the plan, we're going to stick to it?
I think our plan was fairly straightforward, knowing that like Roccat played really well around like picks like Kha'Zix, and that's pretty much why we like permanent and same for Azir, because we know that Blank is like one of the best Azirs in the world, as Niski would put it. But I think our plan was basically to shut down their mid and jungle and make sure that they don't have like a winning 2v2. And well, like even though Zach loses like early, I think early, but after he kind of wins every 2v2, no matter what with whatever mid laner. And we kind of use this as the fact that it's kind of pressured in the other lanes. And yeah, I think our plan was quite straightforward from there.
Well, also straightforward victory, 3-0, and the player of the series was Odoamne, 44% of the votes for the Romanian in the top lane. Perfect, we had a little segment on him ahead of game 3. He did well, he was on Euphoria. You couldn't write this stuff better.
The script is perfect right here for Odoamne and Splyce. I mean, 2 Camille games where they play around him in the early game, he gets a bunch of kills, and then he's pretty good.
He is pretty good. We talked a lot about how Odoamne playing a bit more carries was very much, it came together with Splyce having more synergy and him being able to pick those things that he maybe really wanted to pick but couldn't in the past. Is that something that changed the dynamic of the squad? Is it a big plus for him?
I think, like, although as a player, I've known him since H2K 2015, where I knew him as a tank player. Only Maokai.
Yep, every game.
I liked this Maokai a lot, but
He was famous for Trundle as well, I remember.
And Rama's top lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was back
Good
when it was
times.
like Smite TP meta, I think.
Yeah,
that
probably.
Good stuff.
I hated it. Fucking Huni. But anyway, regardless of that, I felt like although it's definitely developed more as like a, how do I say it? Like, he's much more well-rounded now compared to before. And I don't know if it was because of the fact that he maybe wasn't confident, like back then playing carry matchups compared to now. Because I feel like maybe Odoamne as a player has, has improved. Like I haven't seen him for maybe 2 years or 3 years before that. And I felt he definitely has changed his mindset a lot. And I think because of his mindset change, he's always like trying to strive to be better. And like no matter what he's playing or like what meta it is, he would like always look to improve. And I really kind of, how do I say it? I find it quite admirable by him. So. Yeah.
Can I turn that a bit on you personally? Because I heard that after last week you were quite disappointed. You didn't maybe think that you did enough. How do you feel at this point? Are you proud of today? And do you feel confident going into the rest of the playoffs for you personally?
I actually think today, I think how do I say it? I think last week in week 9, I didn't play as good because I think I was basically just very, how do I say it, panicked. And when you're panicked as a shot caller and a support player, like, you basically, tell your team to just, go somewhere that's just not good. And if you do this, then you basically can't really win a game because of the fact that your team is relying on you. And if you, fail your job, then everyone else will also like die or something. And I felt it was on me today to kind of like make sure that, we calm down, we make sure we do our plan, make sure we play to our win condition. And I think we did that really well today.
And why did it be the kissing effect?
We actually debunked that one on Euphoria. It was the Yanan effect, in fact.
Well, maybe it's back.
According to Kasing himself.
Maybe it's back, see?
I mean, I just think if people listen to me, then it's going to be a good game.
Oh.
Well then, we'll see how that progresses.
keep that in
So
mind.
if Kasing has a bad game, they're going to lose next game.
If
So
you
that's
guide
also
us through
okay.
the segment.
Please don't cap me.
Alrighty, let's see. So let's see how good you're going to have to play. Who's up next for you in the bracket? You guys are going up versus G2 in the semifinals. And then tomorrow's winner will go up... Wait, not... Wait,
Yes,
explain it to me.
tomorrow's winner, because Splyce are the highest seed from the quarterfinals, they have to play the second seed.
Why am I even confused? Nobody else can be in that
Exactly.
other semifinal.
So Vitality HOK will have to play Fnatic. There is no way around it.
And my point that I also just wanted to touch on before we move on is that Roccat is now out, so kind of finishing statements on their split. From my perspective, they did a lot with the project that they were given. Freddie whipped that team into shape, and those players stepped up when it mattered. And getting to playoffs is good. They might be very disappointed, but I think Cold, that's an admirable split for them for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look back at the split, I think they're super satisfied with the fact that she's getting to playoffs. I think they could show more, but we also have to understand that this is a team full of like rookies or newer players. They don't have as much experience as, for example, the Splyce team today. So I think they will use this game or this series to potentially do better in the future. And I think that's what's important for them.
Yeah, great stuff from them. We won't be seeing them for the rest of playoffs, but semi-finals Splyce versus G2, which is a rematch of the summer finals of 2016. But a lot has happened. The teams look completely different. Kobe will be returning to Denmark to play there as well. So in the third place match or in the final if they manage to win this. But Kasing, Odoamne was joking a bit. What do you feel about your chances in this matchup?
It's a 50%, I guess, because it's either you win or lose.
That's true, but is G2
Not wrong.
scary?
That's why it's a shot caller right there.
Is G2 scary?
I mean, I actually don't. No, I don't find them scary. I think, honestly, even the game we played against them for the tiebreaker match, like again, I think I just that was on me, and I felt like because of me, well, that's why we lost, and it kind of sucks a lot because I just feel really responsible because of the fact that if I had not, called one bad call or if I had not, done, failed on my behalf, then maybe we actually would have won it. Because it was on us to lose, and we did.
Well, this is a fantastic setup for your revenge. You can
Kind
just
of,
take him
yes.
out.
I mean, I get to play against Hyonan, my best friend
Aw.
before.
I hadn't even
not
thought
anymore.
of that.
No,
Interesting
Yeah,
matchup.
now you hate him.
Kobe's my new best friend.
Cold, you were saying a lot of interesting
Yeah,
matchups.
so if you go back 2 years, I remember a specific semi-final where Wonder and Odoamne was playing against
That's
each other.
true.
And I remember who came on top on this one because they were playing literally the same matchup every game, which was Nar against GP. And I remember actually Wonder having an edge on Odoamne in this series. So I'm looking a lot on the top lane. I think both have been outstanding so far. And I think a lot is going to come down to who's going to get on top there. And they both like Camille. And this champ is OP, has to be OP.
So that's definitely going to be exciting. Mid lane, which is where we're going to see a lot more action from G2 side. While this Cassidy was good, and he had a fine series, I still think that it's probably going to be one of the lanes G2 will look at. They don't really go bot lane, so it might be a boring farm fest down there, but at least the top side of the map is going to be exciting.
You know what interests me, and this might be a bit controversial, I don't know what you can say about this, but you know that we see, and this is not an insult, this is just Niski in between all the other carries on the team is just not as strong as a carry, it seems, in most of the games, even though he had a fantastic couple of games right here. Is that something that you guys actively kind of work around? You know that? That's not the strongest, but he has different strengths that we then work around and build your comps around?
So, regarding the controversy regarding Niski being, a weak mid laner or the weak point of Splyce or anything like that, I disagree with those comments because I feel like Niski, if the team is not playing around you and you're playing a champion that kind of roams and, just basically, how do I say it, you're there to pick up the sideways whenever you're behind or something, then I think he's still doing his role, or he's still, doing his job. It's like if you were to pick, I don't know, Tristana Braun, right, on bot lane. You're not looking to actually win the lane hard. You're just looking to scale. And when people just flame these kind of players that say, why are they like 50 CS behind or something? Maybe not 50 CS, they shouldn't be that. But
That's a lot.
But the thing is, like, a lot of people just look at like the straight up, the matchups, or they just look at the score without looking at the matchups and stuff. And I feel for Niski because I feel like he's always trying to help others. Like, I think in our game against G2, he literally TP'd and healed like Zach to save him.
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember
I mean, that did cost him his lane,
life.
but I think for someone who does things like this is really like commendable. But yeah, I feel maybe it's just we're not playing around him properly, or we're just we're not doing too much around him. But I feel he still does his job good.
I think that's where there's a small misunderstanding sometimes in what people are criticizing. I don't think anyone is saying that he's not actually...
That he's not a good player.
That he doesn't have a role on Splyce that he's able to fulfill. I think it's more like if you look at just pure carry potential, if it was still tank top laners being played all the time, and you then had a setup where it was Caps versus Niski, people would pick Caps every time as the better carry, right? If they could rely on him in the late game teamfights, as an example. But I think with Niski, and the thing he's actually getting praised for, is when he's playing a lot of the more like utility style, where he's able to impact the rest of the lanes a lot more. And he's doing a good job with that. And I will give him credit. Despite him falling behind in CS, he very rarely gives up early kills. So it's not like camping him has been a successful strategy the teams have really used so far. And that is at least is a good thing for him. But sometimes I think in terms of pure carry, he's weaker than some of the others, which is why he doesn't fill that role
Play those carries,
on Splyce.
Yeah, that makes sense. Glad you were able to talk about that, Kasing. But now let's move on to the quarterfinal that is on the board tomorrow. Vitality versus H2K. And today it was a 3-0. We had kind of expected it not to go all the way, but this one, I can barely hold my excitement. Maybe you would have said H2K, how would they have a chance in hell if you told me this was the quarterfinal matchup in week 4? But today, Cold, or tomorrow rather, what do you think?
It's going to be exciting. So when I looked at the matchup, the difference I saw in today's matchups compared to tomorrow is that the Splyce carries were just stronger than the Roccat carries. But tomorrow we have actually seen both Selfie and Sheriff stepping up big time. So that's why, for me, this matchup becomes more close. And I am not 100% convinced on Vitality as a team in terms of like their macro and how they set up in longer series. So I'm very excited. I think it's going to be close. And I predict H2K is going to win.
H2K to win. The Fisher also predicts H2K to win. Why is that? Because I can see how H2K's play in the last couple of weeks has amazed many, and they made it to playoffs. But to peg them in a quarterfinal over a Vitality...
I mean, so to the point you just made about how they played the last few weeks, like Vitality are 3-7 and HK is 7-3.
Yeah.
So if we just took it from that part, HK would be huge favorites, right? I think for me, H2K's main strengths have been mid to late game. One is team fighting. Another thing is how they play around like Baron specifically, and how they actually stop other teams from rushing it down. And I think Vitality's biggest weakness have been mid to late game. So I can see Vitality win most early games in this series, but then they've really struggled the last few weeks when it actually comes to snowballing that lead, especially around Baron. They leave a ton of openings. They kind of get greedy, where if they feel like the setup takes too long, they just force a fight instantly, and they end up like taking a huge gamble on it that can backfire. So I feel like H2K in most of the games will get to late game. And can become the better team. That's why I got 3-2 for them.
5 games, nice.
So that's going to be 5 games, and I think close, but I think H2K gets it.
All right, Kasing?
Actually, I feel like on Vitality, they have Jizuka as, like, I would say the star player. I feel like he always performs well, and no matter the matchup that he's playing, like, I feel like he never plays bad. But that's like the only player I see doing like really well. Whereas in H2K, I feel like Sheriff is much bigger carry threat. Or he is a much bigger carry threat compared to like Jizuka, because of the fact that in the mid game or mid late game, like your AD carry is the most important member, and I feel H2K as a team plays more cohesive rather than Vitality. And I feel like Vitality's bot lane is actually weaker compared to H2K's bot lane. I feel like H2K will actually win.
Yeah.
What's your score?
3-1.
3-1. This is 3 analysts saying that H2K is going to win. I know a certain person that
They're
is going to
probably
go
gonna
on
lose
Twitter and tweet something right now. And I think we all know who it is. But talking about Twitter, we also asked you guys to send in some questions for our experts with the hashtag #PingTheLobby. And let's take a look at the first question from the Wonderspons. That's a Dutch word, that's funny. How do you prepare as a player for such an important best of 5 besides scrim and practice in games? So maybe Xing, let's start with you. How different was it preparing this for the best of 5s as opposed to the best of 1s all split?
I think the mentality was definitely important, like what we had to change, because usually when in week 1 to 5 or week 1 to 9, your mentality may not be like the greatest because of the fact that you're just playing every week and week. But for playoffs, it's much more like important to know that that you're trying your best, to know that every single matchup like matters. That you play in scrims, like you can't just troll and just like FF20 and blah blah blah.
So to that, coming back to Vitality and HUK, one place where Vitality could have the edge is they've talked a lot about how they've played best of 5s together, 4 of those members, and they've kind of withstood a lot of that stress. You do have some people on HUK like Sheriff, even though he's come into his own the last couple of weeks, who we don't know how he will adapt in a best of 5. So that mentality could be very important.
I always stay away from mentality points because I'm not in the head of the players. I can't predict if Sheriff goes on stage and
What do you
starts
think about
shaking.
Sheriff's mentality?
Seems like a nice guy. I'm sure he's going to have fun on stage.
All right, just kidding.
I'm not in his head.
Just kidding.
It's also the point of like experience and inexperience. Like some people actually just show up even though they're inexperienced, and then you're being like, oh, yeah, he was inexperienced, but he still showed up. So we will just have to see. I think we can only judge of what he has showed in the split so far, and I think with time, when in the start he was not like exceptional or anything, but he has really shown to step up in the split. So I hope he can continue this and show it in the playoffs.
Who on paper is the best of 5 team remaining in playoffs?
Ooh. See, I think Splyce are going to be a good best of 5 team, which was one of the reasons we also predicted them to win. Like they bring effectively a second team of just coaches with them that can also help with preparing. And they have a lot of veterans who's obviously done this a lot before and knows how to prepare for best of 5s.
They also have Kasing, and if you just listen to him,
it's true. And if you just listen to him, I mean, Fnatic.
It's like an extension of Peter Dunn in game.
If they start losing, is it then because of Kasing?
I mean, that's what he said about week 9.
Yeah, it was because of me.
So that's obviously a little bit of a problem. But I think Fnatic with Youngbuck gets a big advantage than they had last year. Youngbuck has always done really well with drafting, which is going to be a big thing. So
best support systems translates into best of 5.
Either that, or if you have Sven and Mithy, but they're not here. So
I cry every time they're not here anymore.
We can't really pick them.
I do believe Vitality should also be a decent team in a best of 5 because they can play so many different styles, and they have shown to be able to carry from different roles. So
have they?
I mean, we saw in the start of the split, we saw Cabochard taking games on like Jax.
Like one.
He carried against us with Jax, man.
Fair, no.
It was brutal.
Selective memory.
You can easily be right here. I just always felt like if it wasn't Jizuke on a playmaker, Vitality looked super different. Like when they tried to play the scaling comps with scaling mids, they like fell super far behind in some of the games and like had to win against Roccat by like TPing in with a virus to finish the nexus and that kind of stuff. Like so I agree that they've shown a lot of different picks, which could be super interesting in a best of 5. I just haven't always felt like they carried from multiple roles.
Well, we'll see tomorrow. We'll have possibly 5 games to judge both Vitality and HUK. I do want to move on to our second tweet, which is from Emil Falk Nielsen, tweeted, which do you think will be the most contested picks in playoffs? I know this might be a bit tricky for Kasing as he doesn't want to disclose anything, so you can not say anything if you don't want to. But we did see a couple of different pixels already in this match, and I suspect that Splyce
jungle
still has a couple things they don't want to show us, and maybe they don't want to show us Trundle Jungle again.
No, we accidentally picked Trundle. It wasn't on purpose.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. We wanted it.
You got me.
What do you got?
I mean, when I look at contested picks, I usually look at like high value picks. And I think usually when I think about high value picks, it's picks that can be played in different roles. So I look at champs like Swain, I look at champs like Cyan. They should have really high value because you can pick them early in the draft without the team actually knowing where it's going. Is it going top or is it going mid? I also look at champs like Saya Rakan, looks super strong. I think Galio could be one of them.
I got one. No, go ahead. Sorry.
And then
I was going to tell me when you were done.
I got one. I'm going to interrupt you, but please keep talking.
No, I wanted you to tell me when he was done.
every champion.
I was hoping to get one of those champions.
Stop talking.
Specifically for the G2 and the Splyce series, I think Camille is going to be super important. But then it goes more into the matchups, you know. But
Give me 2 more.
Olaf is gonna be contested, but not a good pick because we in EU are not that good at actually utilizing it.
1 more jungler. He's green, kind of blobby.
I think it's Zac.
Zac. Yes. Because you know what happens when people play Zac on stage?
It
They
just
actually
looks
have, they look really good because they have a really clear engage tool. And if you feel like, oh, I just messed up, you just all right back out. Zac is so forgiving.
So
I love
forgiving,
him. I
unreal.
absolutely love him on stage.
Very highly
still
contested.
looking, like you can actually pick a lot of champions that will just completely make Zac useless, but we just don't see that very often.
That's why the Zac is so good. Tomorrow, Gilius Zac. He's going to play it all the time.
Jankos and Xerxes Zac in the semifinals.
Everyone loves Zac, man. Everyone loves it.
Everyone loves Zac. So let's take a look at our last tweet from Anti-Woe tweeted. As a Dane, I would like to ask the 2 Danes of the lobby a question. Which Dane do you believe will have the largest impact in the semifinals? Well, we already have a couple of ones. We obviously have Caps on Fnatic. We have Cobby on the side of Splyce.
Broxa, Wonder.
I personally feel
lot
like
of them.
the prediction I made that is completely different to your prediction is going to be most impactful because that makes me win against you.
We basically have almost the same predictions.
Right. But the Danes.
Is it a player or like is it anything?
It's a player.
Oh.
Any, like what else?
It could be your analysis.
Are they
or
taking a
something.
pulse on
That's the
stage?
one.
Like, what is this gonna be?
No, I'm actually looking at Wanda at G2 because I think he's so crucial at carrying the game. Like he is actually the guy that I feel like pulls G2 for the most of the time. So I'm looking at him specifically. I think if he has a bad time against Splyce, then I don't really see G2 winning. So my eyes are on him.
Good choice.
Wonder.
I'm
You
going to say
have a-
Caps.
Caps.
Generally, because most of the Fnatic wins come through him and Reckless at the moment. I think if he plays really well, they remove what is the only early game weakness we've seen from them. Like the teams have really been able to abuse, which is like the camp Caps in the mid lane. Source dies every game anyway, so that's the same. But the Caps one specifically is what has really shut down Fnatic in the past. I think if he plays really well and if Fnatic as a team play well around that, I don't see teams winning against him early. And we know they're going to out-team fight basically everyone with Reckless and Caps.
Yeah. Basically, Fnatic's going to win the split, Kasing.
They're the favorites, at least. You got to admit, at least.
I mean, they are pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, they have
Decent.
Reckless, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
They do have Reckless.
He's
Well
not
then.
Danish, sadly.
He's not Danish.
We could have said Reckless.
He
He was
could have
Danish.
Swedish, sadly.
He lives pretty close.
Is that
2
not the
hours
same
away.
thing? Oh, okay.
He's 2 hours away from Denmark.
You didn't hear that. Is
If
it
it's
not
the same?
Yeah, I know it's not the same thing. And I thought you'd be offended, but you all get along over there.
On camera, we cannot get offended by that.
Okay. Alrighty. So as they're closing out the first quarterfinal, we also wanted to take a look at the All-Pro team from the regular season because the votes are in. We just talked about Reckless, and it is no surprise that he is in that list. We have Wonder, Xerxes, Caps, Reckless, and Hylissang. So there is a tad of discussion online. They were published today, and the people on Reddit on the forums had a thing or two to say about it, especially about the support role. Kasing, first up, did you think you had to be in the first All-Pro team?
I mean, I didn't. I mean, I think I did, but I didn't. Like, I told Peter, my coach, I told him to vote for Hylissang because I thought it wouldn't be.
You were
wouldn't matter.
1 vote short.
Yeah.
You could have been.
You could have put him
tighter.
further down.
Yeah, I could have told Hylissang to go down. But
But that's not how you vote. That's not how you vote.
But I mean, I voted based on who I thought was good, and I felt like Hylissang was pretty decent. So
A bit of a discussion we had earlier was: is there really at this point, in times gone by, you could say Mythy, absolutely best support in Europe. You could say Mickey X had his period where he was the best support in Europe. Yellow Star, far gone. But right now, it doesn't feel like there's a clear, this guy is miles above everyone else.
It feels really open
Yeah.
overall.
I kind of feel the same about the jungle role at certain times because both the jungle role and the support role are so determined on like how much do you actually provide for the team. It doesn't have to be like what you actually see in front of you. It can also be what you're doing in terms of shot calling, what you can do in terms of like leading the team in game, outside of the game. And as a viewer, you don't see this like as much as like I would see in my team or Kasing would see in his team. So I think it's just super hard to judge. And to bring up like a guy like, for example, Yellow Star, it was because we knew what he provided for the Fnatic team. That's why so many people praised him, and they were like, this guy is so crucial for the victories. And we since there was a lot of change, like Miffy is out, we're still learning about what the support players are providing for the team, and I think that's what will take some time.
I think it's interesting, it says jungle, because for the last couple of weeks, it was pretty unanimous that Xerxes should have that #1 all-pro spot. Do you think someone else should have been there?
I mean, it was... No, I think he definitely has shown that he was the guy that performed the best. And I think the jungle role specifically has more tools to shine than necessarily the support role. But like, if you look at the middle of the pack of the junglers in Europe, like, it's super hard to tell, like, this guy is better than this guy, or...
Yeah, exactly.
That's where it comes. That's where you need to understand, like, what is this guy providing for his team. And there are different things you can provide.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I think just in general, like, you could have defended a lot of different first place junglers. Like, you could have put Memento there and had a good reason for it. You could put Cold on your list and say, because, you know, he didn't have...
Unicorns of Love success.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they actually, as for a team who ended up being last, they actually looked pretty good in a lot of the games. And the early game was mainly carried by him specifically. I'm not saying you had to be #1 or anything, but you could definitely put you on the list and you could actually make a case for it. I think also with top lane, like, for me, Wonder was #1. But that was like #2. I'm like,
Odo Amne?
There's like a ton of people here. I ended up with Odo Amne because I felt like the second half he was individually so good. But I can see anyone put Soas. I could have seen, you know, people look towards someone like, you know, Prophet and what he did in the early stages.
So you can make a case for different support. Top, you have a lot, but I feel like ADC and mid are two of them where most people feel unanimous about the picks. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Reckless was like by far the highest, right?
He had like 90+%, I think.
90+%?
I think so. Yeah, something was said like the
haven't
gap was like insane.
I haven't seen it exactly, but...
The thing with Reckless is just we have seen so many games this split where he just literally takes over the game by himself and just being insanely far ahead, killing everyone. Like, no other ADC has shown that in the split. I think the only one that comes close for me is like a guy like Kobe, but he has Kasing playing Lulu and Janna for him, you know, like, it's kind of...
What? I play it because he's good. Not because he's...
I know it's good when you
make him look better.
Comment needs it.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not carrying.
You gotta hold his hand. Sven is also gone, which obviously meant that the AD carry race that we typically saw between Reckless and Sven obviously wasn't there.
I know it's so much conjecture and so hard to say, but if Sven was here this year and he played the way he did last year, is this still a close race?
You still gotta give it to Reckless.
Yeah, I think Reckless.
I mean, he did win the summer MVP as well, with Sven still here. So
that's true.
There we go. Who is your guys' MVP amongst these lads?
Yes.
That's no surprise.
Yes.
Who would you guys vote for MVP?
I mean, it's obvious. Reckless.
No.
Like, he's just...
Yeah.
We don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, he has a pretty good chance. I feel like it's a pretty race between Caps and Reckless. Seems like those are the top two.
There's probably a lot of people with him. I still wonder if a lot of people put Perks in their list, or people put Kasing in it, or in terms of, because like MVP. The thing about MVPs, a lot of it depends on how you value the MVP
and what you
title.
value.
Like, is it leadership you value and the effect he's shown on a team, or is it the individual carry skill you value? And if it is like the effect on the team, like a lot of people have highly praised Kasing for that one specifically. Perks obviously is a mix of two things, where one, the carry potential he showed for at least...
No, it's all about the KDA.
Split. And then, of course, the KDA is... Actually, he's a bad KDA. He dies a lot.
Yeah.
So that's not good for him. But then it's also like the impact he has on G2.
Well, we'll see in a couple of weeks. We'll also steadily find out the rookie of the split, the MVP of the split, and all that jazz. But not today. But tomorrow, we have a hot best-of-5 on our hands. H2K and Vitality, they square off in our second quarterfinal for a spot in Copenhagen and for a spot in the semifinal. Going up versus Fnatic. That's not a present if you get that. But we'll see. The first game will start at 5 p.m. And as you've heard it already from the guys here, it's going to be a very good one. Most likely 5 games.
It should be explosive.
Please. Explosive.
Hopefully.
God Gilius level 2 ganking, level 3 ganking, level 4 ganking.
Level 1 ganking.
Out of 18 games, only one Vitality game have been slow. Out of 18 games. All the other ones, action.
That's what we want. Action tomorrow and more action tonight, because over in the NALCS Academy, the playoffs are well underway. Cloud9 versus FlyQuest is tonight's matchup. And if you missed any of the games from the quarterfinal in the EULCS, you can check them out in our rebroadcast after the show in North America. So that will do it from us. Congratulations once again on your semifinal, Kasing. And that will be all from us here in Berlin. We'll see you tomorrow for H2K versus Vitality. Have a great night.
Bye.
Let's see.